Hello there folks, Fuzzy Pixels here, and it's time for a little review of Master of None Season 2. Oh yes, and I've got a confession to make. It took me a couple of attempts to get into Master of None initially. I love Aziz Ansari as a comedian. I loved him as Tom Haverford in Parks and Rec. I love that he turns his observational wit to discuss topics such as feminism, multiculturalism, and the idiosyncrasies of modern life. But for whatever reason, I found myself initially turned off, to be honest, by Master of None's kind of awkward, stilted nature. Ansari is a brilliant comic, but I don't think he's the world's greatest actor, and there were just too many lines for me in the first few episodes when I encountered them for the first time. They just seemed to land super awkwardly. It didn't really flow. It was kind of stilted, and yeah, it just really didn't feel natural, I guess, to me. Like, instead of a natural scene, too often I found myself seeing and hearing a script, and that really took me out of things initially. The important word there is initially. I've since gone back. I've adored and absorbed season 1, and I didn't have this issue at all with season 2. And that might have come from rewatching season 1 with a glass of wine in my hand and then continuing onwards. But I feel it has more to do with the fact that season 2 of Master of None just displays this super assured confidence in both the scripting and especially the directing. Right, so at the beginning of season 2, we find Ansari's character, Dev, in Modena, Italy, having spent the time in between seasons trying to find himself by making pasta and delighting in Italian culture. Now, in terms of the show, this actually results in an audacious black and white opening episode that seems like a direct homage to Vittorio De Sica's Bicycle Thieves at times, especially when Dev has his mobile phone pinched and embarks on an amusing quest to track down the perpetrator along with his pastor's tutor's son. Also in that episode, we're introduced to Francesca, played by Alessandra Mastronardi, one of Dev's Italian friends. They like the same sort of things. She laughs at Dev's earnest jokes, and there are looks from Dev that kind of hint at a little aching of the heart. You're rooting for something to happen almost from the very beginning. And of course she has a boyfriend, a chap named Pino, who is perfectly lovely but is more into tiles than culture. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the slow burn romantic plot that underpins this particular season. But this particular season just isn't afraid to ignore that completely. It's a character piece more than a plot by numbers romantic comedy series, and it's all the better for it. Dev returns to New York pretty early on, and it isn't long before a new gig beckons. This time he's hosting an all too plausible reality TV show called Clash of the Cupcakes. Sidebar, I really want to see that happen with Aziz Ansari as the host. I think it would be quite hilarious. I don't know if that's just a sad indictment of modern television or what, but yeah, it's almost too perfect. Anyway, in amongst the progression of Dev's own story, Master of None basically delivers this whole bunch of vignette episodes that almost exist as standalone snapshots exploring the lives of others. It's really good stuff. In New York, I Love You, for example, the show shines a light on the lives of people who might be extras or background characters in other TV shows. There's a deaf store clerk struggling with her sex life, a doorman for a wealthy apartment block dealing with morally dubious favours for the residents, a trio of taxi drivers simply looking for a good night out. And we've seen assimilation stories before, but this is an episode that feels so naturalistic as to almost be fly on the wall. It's absolutely fantastic. And Master of None succeeds in having great heart without ever really feeling schmaltzy. The Thanksgiving episode, for example, explores the holiday's history from the perspective of Dev's lesbian friend Denise, as she gradually comes out to her family and starts bringing girlfriends home. And what starts as homophobia on her mother's part transforms into that classic trope of parents just wanting to see their children with a nice partner, and that latter mindset eventually supersedes the former, right? It's a simple journey, but an important one that looks at shared experience and the idea that ultimately, whoever we are, whomever we love, wherever we come from, happiness and the pursuit of it is really what life is all about. It's really what this show is all about. The irony of this and the difficulty of that pursuit is perhaps illustrated best in episode 4, titled First Date, which blends 12 kind of Tinder dates into one. We see Dev take 12 different women of varying races and maturity levels on the same date, with slick direction and slicker editing remixing them all into a highlight reel that plays out on screen in chronological order as a single date. And it's a brilliant technique that perfectly captures the potentially unfulfilling nature of these rapid fire dates, ticking off identifiable types such as serial daters, self-obsessives, dark horses, who appear perfectly normal on the date itself, but invite a whole bunch of questions once you get back to their place. And one of the best scenes in the entire season occurs when Dev calls out one of his dates for having a racist doll in which she keeps her condoms, only for her to kind of call him a hypocrite because he realised this and yet still had sex with her. And Dev kind of just ponders this for a minute, shrugs, and kind of exits post-haste. We end up contrasting this kind of disillusionment at the modern dating game with Dev's relationship with Francesca, who finds a way back into his life as the season progresses, and it helps that Ansari and Mastronardi have genuine chemistry on screen. It's great. There's a really easygoing feel to their on-screen relationship that feels incredibly genuine. The scenes that they share are so warm and joyous and downright cute at times that it's really difficult not to be carried along by the unspoken romance of it all, especially in the hour-long penultimate episode in which all this kind of comes to a head. Yeah, I mean, the series leaves this relationship behind for a while, and then when it comes back, it's just like, oh, hey, you know, we've had half-hour episodes for like, most of this. Hell no! Let's stick an hour-long romantic one in the middle of it all and just explore this relationship. I love that Master of None has the confidence to do that, and by and large, it really, really, really works. It's not completely perfect though, you know, there are obstacles for Dev and Francesca, not least Francesca's boyfriend and eventual fiancé, and herein lies perhaps the weakest element of the season. Pino simply isn't around long enough for us to really care about him. You know, we see Francesca's moral struggle, she tells us that breaking up with Pino would destroy him, but the show doesn't really earn much emotional investment on Pino's part. Or indeed in this kind of moral conundrum, like we're all rooting for Dev and Francesca. The moral conundrum is kind of created more by pre-existing moral and social considerations taken for granted, rather than by any real explanation of Pino and Francesca's relationship. And by that I mean, like, you know, we all know, or a lot of us will know what cheating feels like, you know, or have been part of that weird sort of not quite okay love triangle. And it's sort of assumed that we understand these things as an audience, and so they don't necessarily need to show, you know, Pino and Francesca's relationship more than a little smattering here and there. But I kind of feel like, you know, that's a slight weak point for the series, for the season rather. And it would have been nice to sort of see that come out and see that mess a little bit more clearly, rather than just in kind of Francesca struggling with her inner monologue. That being said, like, that grey and murky area is there, it is addressed, and the show doesn't offer any easy resolution as well. There's no kind of clean and tidy ending to the season, and I love that. And the same can be said of Dev's professional life, which, you know, it takes an amazing turn when he pitches and lands the show of his dreams, but it comes as a cost because, you know, his co-host is revealed to have several sexual misconduct allegations in his closet. Again, the aftermath is messy, just like life. Dev comes to realise that maintaining his career and keeping his dream, you know, might be at odds with doing the right thing. Master of None just rejects so many of the serialized norms we've come to expect from our shows, but that's actually its magnificent charm. It manages to be silly and offbeat and romantic and warm and puntastic, and sometimes Dev can be a little bit cringy, you know, just in the same way that people are all of those things. It manages to pull off shifts in tone and style without seeming overly messy or anachronistic, because it's focused on people rather than plot lines. And while it might lack belly laughs, it's not that kind of a show. Instead of being able to count the number of times I laughed out loud, I'm really super content to say that I watched absolutely every second of this season with this kind of beatific smile on my face, just this utter contentment on my face. I absolutely adored every moment of it. It went further than the first, it risked more, and for me, it absolutely succeeded. So yes, while I might have come to Master of None a little bit late, and while it might have taken me a couple of watches of that first season to get there, I absolutely adore this second season. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and, you know, important, if not essential, watching. Really, it's, yeah, I can't wait for season 3. I know Ansari has said that, you know, he might need to take a bit of a long break before season 3 and experience a little bit more life, you know, but this is one of the best sort of, I guess, 10 episodes of television that I've watched this year. It's so good. So good. Those are just my thoughts though. How about you guys? Have you seen Master of None Season 2? What do you think of the series? What do you think of the season? Did you enjoy that sort of romantic subplot line? Let me know, hit me up in the comments. There's some clickables by the side of my head. We've got more videos coming, You, Me, Her, more Netflix stuff, and sort of game stuff as well as I sort of dive into my enormous backlog. So yeah, lots to come. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your friends. I'll see you very soon. Till then, adios folks.